Hope you're doing well, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. We're going to preview all the weekend events that are ahead, and we're going to talk about what's in store as we head into next week, the final work week before we get into Thanksgiving. But first things first, let's go ahead and talk about some things that have happened over the past week, and specifically Tuesday, because we had a record that we broke, and that was for your low temperature. Yes, you did hear me correctly. 26 degrees back in 1913 was the record low for Tuesday all time. So on November 11th, Veterans Day, well, we did go 1 degree below that, recorded 25 degrees up here in the Macon area. So that broke a 112-year record. But not only that, that was our first freeze of the fall season. And typically our first freeze, our numbers are hovering right there around the 32-degree mark, maybe just a degree or two lower. However, we did have a freeze warning that was issued, so we had widespread freezing temperatures that were in place as you walked out the door on Tuesday morning, and it is for areas still in the growing season. But you do see this little note here at the bottom of your screen. Products are issued until each county's first hard freeze, which is 28 degrees or even colder, or until November 20th. We had widespread low temperatures in the mid and the upper 20s. It was good enough for everyone's first hard freeze. So now we won't have any frost or freeze products, even if we do have a couple days in the near future that are going to be near freezing temperature to start out the day, but that's not looking to be the case. Give you a bit of a spoiler alert. So we have that hard freeze, and the growing season has officially ended. So no more frost or freeze products will be issued from the National Weather Service. But it's also been a very dry stretch of weather. In fact, nothing in the way of rain through the entire month of November so far. We started out right in the middle of the near normal box, steadily made our way through the dry category, and now we're into the very dry category. So that's what happens. Those numbers and these plot points will continue to go down if you don't record anything in the way of rain. But once again, just like we were talking about for the month of October, November is a very dry month on average. Only about 2 3/4 of an inch of rainfall is recorded in November all time. The record that came back in 1992, 10.27 inches of rain. And right now we are at 0.00. So hopefully we can get some rainfall over the foreseeable future. So for the entire calendar year, your year departure of rain that we typically show you on that almanac graphic is now down to 1.31 inches of rain above where we should be in the calendar year. And this comes even despite a dry month of September, a relatively dry month of October, and a very dry and basically a completely dry month of November thus far. Obviously, this is just the Macon area. This doesn't go for all areas of Central Georgia, because dating back to last weekend on Saturday afternoon, some areas did even experience a severe thunderstorm warning. So of course they got their fair share of rainfall in a select few counties. I'm looking at areas like Putnam County, Hancock County, Baldwin, and Washington counties. But no luck down here in Bibb County, and these numbers are as November 13th. We'll continue to maybe try to turn this red box for the month of November into one of these green boxes like you do see for the month of August, the month of July, and the month of May. Those 3 months themselves have really resulted in the sole reasoning that we are still above average, even despite more red boxes than green. And now let's take a look at your drought monitor, which we did get an update to as of this past Thursday. First and foremost, I did put a pause point right here because I wanted to show you states to our north, even northeast Georgia, northern Alabama, western North Carolina. They've gotten their fair share of rain over the course of this past week, previous weeks, and they now do not have anything in the way of some dry categories. However, down here in Central Georgia, once again, we didn't look out with much rain whatsoever. Even our northernmost counties, where we did see that severe thunderstorm warning pop up, still in a moderate drought, and that's what most of you are under. The only change we really saw was this patch right here. So this patch of a severe drought has extended up into portions of Crisp County, getting into southern Dooley County, northern Wilcox County, and back over to the west in areas like Sly County and Sumter County. So what we're going to be on the lookout for is these possibly worsening as we get our next update of the drought monitor come next Thursday, because we aren't forecasting any rain until we get into the end of next week. So that goes ahead and tells you a bit of the story with Future View, because take a look at this. 6 p.m. later on your Friday evening forecast, it is looking crystal clear. Great weather for football Friday night and any Friday evening or nighttime plans that you have with friends and family. Let's go all the way into Saturday morning. Still not even a singular cloud in the sky. And then we get into the afternoon, right around lunchtime, some passing high-level cloud cover. may be in the forecast. Overall, it's not going to do really much in the way of blocking your sunshine. And then as we go into the nighttime hours on Saturday, specifically into Sunday morning, there is a bit of a change with your forecast, mainly in the form of some gustier winds. So you can see those wind arrows. They're a little bit longer, and when they start to turn yellow in color, that can indicate some pretty gusty winds, up to maybe 20 or 25 miles per hour. But a few clouds may be in the sky as you walk out the door to church on Sunday morning. Sunday afternoon, still seeing a couple of clouds hanging in the picture, nothing that is going to produce anything in the way of rain. And then we transition all the way into your Sunday evening and your Sunday night as you get ready to start that last full work week of the month of November as we go into next Monday. So here's a look at your weekend outlook. When we have a quiet weather stretch, we like to focus on the numbers. Chilly morning on Friday morning, 38 degrees, and virtually the same feeling as you're walking out the door on Saturday morning. But 75 for a high temperature on Friday. That's already going to be one of our warmer temperatures that we've seen as of recently, and we continue to see those numbers climb. 78 on Saturday and then 78 as we go into Sunday. But where you see the main difference on this weekend outlook graphic is obviously not those cloud icons. You're just going to see some patchy clouds at some times, and maybe with high temperatures in the upper 70s, those clouds providing a little bit of shade will not necessarily be a bad thing. It's really in your morning low temperatures, 39 as we start out the day on Saturday morning, right around sunrise at 7 a.m., up to 51 degrees as we go into Sunday. We didn't see much in the way of cloud cover, and that's normally our telltale reason why we do have some warmer temperatures to start out each and every morning, but I will talk about why that number is so much warmer than what we do see on Friday and Saturday mornings. But first things first, let's talk about those winds, because I did mention at the end of the weekend they could start to pick up. Going to virtually be non-existent. These are your wind gusts, so these are what the winds could occasionally get up to, and we're only seeing maybe a 5 mile per hour, or 6 or maybe even 7 mile per hour breeze at the very most throughout your Friday night. Going into Saturday afternoon, it does look like we could have a light breeze present on occasion, but also up here to the northeast. Keep that in mind for the Georgia game that will be happening on Saturday evening. The winds could be a bit gustier up there at Sanford Stadium. Now we go into your Sunday morning, and I do expect some breezy conditions to already build into the forecast as you're making your way out the door for Sunday afternoon plans or heading out to church. Gusts up to 22 miles per hour possible, and we will continue to keep the breeze into the afternoon right there at 3 o'clock on Sunday before it starts to subside as we head into the late afternoon and evening hours. And I do imagine maybe the winds could stick around a little bit into Monday morning, but your temperatures Monday morning are not forecasted to be, say, as low as 30 degrees or 20 degrees like we saw earlier over the past week, and I don't think it's going to have much of an influence on what it feels like outside. Taking a look at your humidity map, which I don't throw a pause point on until we get to Sunday morning. Dew point temperatures, 53 degrees. You can't have temperatures that are below what your dew point temperatures are sitting at. So we should see a slight increase in the humidity content, and that's why we have some more warmer morning low temperature values on Sunday morning as opposed to Saturday morning and as opposed to Friday morning. But that's going to be very short-lived as we are eyeing the passage of a frontal boundary that will come through Sunday night into early Monday morning, and it's not going to really do anything besides have some passing cloud cover over central Georgia. Again, we do get that uptick in humidity, although that's not going to really be enough to sprout, say, some widespread rain chances. Areas that are more humid with dew point temperatures, say, in the 60s or the 70s would have a better shot at receiving some more widespread rain, maybe even some storms, but not in the cards for us whatsoever. So let's talk about your football Friday night forecast. Tailgate time. Temperatures still near the 70-degree mark, beginning their cool down. I know this is a sunrise icon. I just keep forgetting to change it into a sunset icon. But remember, we got that time change over the last 2 weeks. So your sunset is actually going to happen right after tailgate, sometime around the 5:30 time frame. And then as you go into kickoff, it is already going to be dark outside. So your temperatures are going to cool down pretty rapidly over the course of about 2 hours. 56 for kickoff, and then once you head into final score time, the fourth quarter of games, temperatures near the 50-degree mark. And of course, if you go into overtime, those numbers are very likely to go a little bit lower, say in the upper 40s. Main messaging with this is it's going to feel great when you're heading out to the football games, but once the games do kick off, those numbers are going to steadily go down. So of course, break out the jacket and make sure that you have some form of layering, maybe even a blanket, if you are planning on sitting on those cold bleachers. Now let's go into your Mercer football forecast. Yes, the Bears are back in town, and they had a big win against Western Carolina as of last weekend, won the SoCon regular season title. Well, they are squaring off against Chattanooga this weekend at 5 Star Stadium. It is a 3 p.m. kickoff. Temperatures in the mid-70s. Mostly sunny skies, going to be amazing football weather. Not even really feeling like football weather. It's actually maybe feeling a tad bit like a summer baseball forecast with this. So tailgate time, 72 degrees, a little bit of a warm up into kickoff, and then as you go into final score time, that's when you start to get some cooler numbers. Once again, sunset right there around 5:30, 5:32 to be specific tomorrow. So by 6 p.m. it's probably going to start to be a little bit dark outside. That's why your temperatures are a little bit cooler, but all in all, these temperature values feel quite amazing. I think you could probably get away with maybe a hoodie and some shorts weather if you are planning on heading out to watch the Bears take on Chattanooga. And there is a big game up 441. You've probably heard me talk about it for the last 2 days. I'm very excited to watch the number 5 Georgia Bulldogs square off against the number 10 Texas Longhorns. I said it yesterday and I'll say it again. Don't know how Texas has kind of crept their way back into the top 10, but let's go ahead and bump them down after we get through Saturday night. Kickoff at Sanford Stadium. It's going to be a night game, so you know the atmosphere is going to be electric. However, your weather, it's going to be relatively quiet. The opposite of how Sanford Stadium's atmosphere is going to be. Tailgate time around 4 p.m., 73 degrees up in the Classic City. Then we go into kickoff time. Once again, already going to be dark. That sunset in Athens actually happens at 5:29 p.m., so 3 minutes earlier than here in Macon. And that's just because Athens is slightly more to the east as compared to Macon, so it does take about 3 more minutes for the sun to officially set over here to the west in Macon as opposed to Athens in the east. And then 11 p.m., probably around the time you're heading home, maybe even a little bit later. Temperatures should be right around that 60-degree mark. I think this is going to be an amazing forecast, but also once again, maybe a hoodie and some shorts weather, or maybe even wearing just some khaki pants. Some form of a light layering on the upper body is probably going to be a wise choice if you're heading up to watch the Bulldogs take on the Longhorns. And of course, with each and every night that we go into the nighttime hours, after you get past sunset, those temperatures just drastically go down and down and down. Yes, you kind of get what I'm doing right there. Had to throw a little subtle reference in that forecast. But also another big football weekend. We continue all the fun into Sunday. The Falcons, well, if you want to consider that fun, I guess. The Falcons will be squaring off against the Carolina Panthers up at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's a 1 p.m. kickoff, but as of right now, I think the roof status is still to be announced. And I would say this is a pretty good forecast to open the roof up for, but they haven't officially announced that on the Mercedes-Benz Stadium page. But temperatures inside, of course, going to feel nice and comfortable. But when you're tailgating, 10 a.m., say, 67 degrees, I do expect some clouds in the picture during the morning and early afternoon hours, but I expect conditions to steadily clear out as you are heading home. Remember, that frontal boundary looks like it's going to pass through during the day on Sunday. That's why we see that passing cloud cover. Atlanta farther to the north than Macon. So of course they are going to get that drier air and the clearing of those clouds a bit earlier than we will down here in central Georgia. So putting up the Christmas lights, yes, this is my first Christmas graphic I've gotten to show, but a lot of folks are probably going ahead and getting the Christmas lights out. You want to get that done before Thanksgiving, celebrate a little bit more of the holiday season. I have a green light on every single day of your weekend. It's going to be a great weekend to put up the lights. Perfect weather on Friday, warmer high temperatures on Saturday. The only note I have is Sunday. Remember, it's going to be a bit of a breezy day, so you might want to make plans to get out the ladder and say put up those lights on the roof or those higher surfaces on Friday and Saturday. Last thing you really want to be doing is climbing up the ladder on a windy day on Sunday, so maybe save the inside decorations for the end of the weekend. And your weekend grill cast. It is green spatulas. You are good to go. Fire up the grill all weekend long, and with lots and lots of football that I just talk to you about, it's going to be an amazing weekend to grill out with some friends and family. And a pickleball forecast. I enjoy just doing all these different forecasts, but my messaging is going to be the same with each and every day. The only thing I have worth noting, a lot of you like to go play pickleball in the first half of the day, maybe when temperatures are a little bit cooler. So it's going to be a chilly morning on Saturday. Expect temperatures in the 40s, maybe about an hour past sunrise. And then as you get closer and closer to, say, around 12 p.m. into 1 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll finally see those numbers creep into the 70s. Sunday, once again, a warm and a breezy afternoon. So That pickleball, relatively light in nature, probably going to blow around a little bit more. You'll have a little bit more curvature when you hit the ball on Sunday afternoon, something that you could probably brag to your friends about and say, hey, yeah, I was definitely trying to do that. It wasn't that steady breeze that's been blowing all day. So my recommended weekend attire, Friday night and Saturday morning specifically, you'll want to have the jacket ready to go, have some form of layering for the morning time frame or the nighttime hours on Friday, because temperatures are going to get cool very quick past sunset on Friday afternoon. And then as you go into Saturday morning, we're still holding on to that chill in the air for one last morning. Then that morning low goes up to around 50. So I think you can get away with short sleeves, sunglasses, some shorts over the rest of the course of the back half of your weekend. And good news, Central Georgia, that pattern of warm and dry weather is going to continue into your long range models. Let's go ahead and take it to Monday at 5 p.m. We could have some form of a weather system trying to form to the north of us. Rain chances have not looked very impressive here in Central Georgia with this system around Monday and Tuesday. They're a whole lot better in those areas we were talking about on the drought monitor that don't need any more rain. They are good to go. They're not in any form of abnormally dry or slight drought conditions. Down here in Central Georgia, we definitely could use that. So maybe keeping our fingers crossed that this system could move a little bit farther down to the south as we get closer. We go all the way into Wednesday now. So Wednesday at 5 p.m., it looks like there is some form of another widespread weather system sending some widespread rain over to the west, trying to form over here in the eastern United States. And here we start to see it come to fruition, but what we aren't seeing is agreement amongst these long-range models. Here's the GFS model in green. It's almost about a day out ahead of time of the European in blue, which is back over in the southern plains, stretching down into North Texas. So this is around the noon hour, midday on Thursday next week. So you know this is getting into about the 6, maybe even 5-day range out ahead of time. This is still going to fluctuate a good bit. So we'll try to see if the models can come into better focus and better agreement as we get closer and closer to this. But what I would plan on is the very late portion of the work week next week. That's when you'll want to prep the raincoat. That's when things are finally looking to change. The GFS has a frontal boundary trying to sweep through as we go into the nighttime hours on Thursday. But of course, that's a cooler portion of the day. You lose that daytime heating. And if we don't have enough moisture down in the southeast, it's not going to sprout some widespread rain. But if we go the European route, it looks like it would try to pass through as we go into Friday afternoon. That would be a warmer portion of the day. If we can get some southwesterly winds to continue to keep the humidity in the forecast, that would sprout some more widespread rain chances. But as of right now, that's what I'm just doing. I'm just throwing it on your radar. This is far from certain the exact timing, but it does look pretty confident that Thursday into Friday, maybe all the way into Saturday, is when your next best rain chance is going to be. So now we talk about our Stuff the Truck forecast. It is that time of the year. We're getting close to the Thanksgiving season. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we are going to be out at various Walmarts here across Central Georgia. Tuesday, we're going to be at the Walmart in Milledgeville. Wednesday, we're going down to Dublin for a visit down there in Lawrence County. And then Thursday, we have double whammy. We'll be at the Warner Robins Walmart off Watson Boulevard, and we'll also be at the Macon Walmart off Zebulon Road. Here's roughly the temperatures you can expect. These are definitely very likely to change. Temperature in Milledgeville on Tuesday afternoon, a high of 80 degrees. Yes, we may top out in the upper 70s, but it's going to be a warm afternoon, and your morning low temperatures are going to be nice if you want to head out there to the Walmart before you head out to work and school. Now we go down to Dublin on Wednesday. High temperature not too different from what we have in Milledgeville on Tuesday of 79 degrees. And then as we go into Thursday next week, maybe slightly cooler. All in all, mid 70s, upper 70s, 80 degrees. They're all virtually feeling the same. It's just a little bit warmer for Tuesday and Wednesday as of right now, but we'll continue to keep you posted on this. Rain is not looking to be a factor with Stuff the Truck for an actual change. I remember the past couple of years we've sent our fair share of reporters, even meteorologists out there. They've needed the raincoat. They've needed heavy layering. I was definitely wearing my puffer coat last year in Warner Robins when I was out there visiting. So very thankfully we'll have warmer weather, dry weather, and it's going to be a very opportune forecast for this great fundraiser that we do each and every year. And you guys cannot use the weather as an excuse to not come say hey to all your favorite on-air personalities, myself, Ben Jones, Ansley Parker, David Guerrero, and of course all our wonderful reporters, anchors. We're all going to be scattered about Central Georgia on each of these 3 days. Make sure that you make it a point to come say hey to us and donate to a very good cause to make sure that a lot of folks get the holiday meals that that they deserve this holiday season. Morning low temperatures, upper 40s as we kick off the beginning of the week. Like I mentioned, we're going to bounce back close to that 50-degree mark for those morning lows on Sunday. We'll continue with above average morning low temperatures all throughout the work week next week and nearly 10 degrees above average on Wednesday morning as it currently stands. Your afternoon highs not going to change much. They're going to bounce around between the mid 70s and maybe the upper 70s near 80 degrees. But all in all, it's going to be a very stretch of warmer weather, and that drier weather is the main reasoning for that. Once you have some rain chances come in, that along with the cloud cover can keep the numbers a little bit cooler. But other than that, after the passage of a frontal boundary, we get some very cold air this time of year, specifically like what we saw on Monday and Tuesday. So we don't really have any signs of that. But let's go ahead and look at your extended temperature outlook. This gives us a rough idea about what we can expect past your 7-day forecast. Well, note the date range, November 21st, which is going to be next Friday, all the way to November 27th. Does that date ring a bell? That is going to be Thanksgiving Day. Take a look at how many boxes over to the right that we are sitting at here in Central Georgia. This is a very dark red category, indicating a very good probability of some above normal temperatures. So right now, my common thinking is that we are going to continue with the above average weather with some highs in the mid to upper 70s, maybe more so the mid 70s, because your average high temperature will tick down a little bit more into the upper 60s by this time of the year. But look how many boxes over of near normal this gray category we are. 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even getting into 5 boxes over to the right. So we have roughly around a 70 to 80% chance, I did look it up on this actual temperature outlook online, of being above normal. So that's a very good chance, something that you don't see really good confidence in about 2 weeks out of this forecast. So hopefully we'll continue to pair up some warmer weather with maybe some drier weather, but obviously I did just talk about that drought monitor and we really could use some rain. We have a slight probability of seeing some above normal rainfall, and right now my common thinking is it's going to be that rainmaker I was just referring to, Thursday into Friday, maybe Saturday next week, and that could send better rainfall totals over to the west of us. There is more confidence in that, but right now we're just one box over to the right of this near normal category, so that's going to result in maybe about a 10 to 20% chance that we have of being above normal for our rainfall in the extended forecast. So it doesn't really look like the drought conditions are going to get alleviated very soon, but we'll continue to keep our fingers crossed that the models resolve more widespread rain, maybe even some storms, because storms come along with heavy rainfall, and that is going to result in higher rainfall totals to hydrate the ground a little bit better. So looking ahead, Stuff the Truck, we were just talking about it, that will be kicking off in 4 days. Next Tuesday, November 18th, November 19th on the Wednesday, and then as we go into Thursday, November 20th. Thanksgiving going to be about a week after we end Stuff the Truck, so 13 days away from Turkey Day, and the day after is going to be Black Friday. But it's also a very eventful weekend, specifically in the weather community. It will be the end of hurricane season that following Sunday after Thanksgiving. That will be November 30th. Then we'll transition into the month of December, but hurricane season officially ends for the Atlantic on November 30th. So speaking of that, let's take a look at your tropics outlook, because I did mention we still have about another 2 weeks and maybe some change of hurricane season. Your tropics outlook as of 8 a.m. on Friday, no activity expected over the next 7 days. This graphic has not changed whatsoever over the course of the last week, maybe week and a half. Ever since we had Hurricane Melissa roll through the northern Caribbean and up into the North Atlantic Ocean, there's been absolutely nothing cooking in the tropics. No potential areas of development, no named storms whatsoever. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the numbers that we've seen as of November 14th. On average, we typically see 14 named storms in the Atlantic Basin. Half of those are normally classified as hurricanes, so they get winds of 73 plus miles per hour. And then of those hurricanes, just below half are normally classified as major hurricanes, so Category 3 or greater storms. Well, Colorado State forecasted this for us at the beginning of hurricane season. Above average for the number of named storms by 17 named storms as opposed to 14 on average, 9 of which form into hurricanes, as opposed to the 7 that we typically see on average, and 4 major hurricanes compared to what we normally see of 3 of those major hurricanes. These are your numbers in 2025 that we have recorded so far. 13 named storms, so we're really close to average, but but still well off of Colorado State's forecasted total of 17. We've seen 5 hurricanes, so not too many storms that have formed out there in the Atlantic Basin have formed into hurricanes. We're still 2 storms below average and 4 storms below what was forecasted. But the ones that have formed into hurricanes, they have been very strong. Look at that. 4 out of the 5 hurricanes that we've had have been major hurricanes, and 3 out of those 4 have been of Category 5 status. So we have met what was forecasted in terms of our major hurricanes by Colorado State, but just the sheer frequency of tropical storms hasn't really lived up to what we were thinking at the beginning of hurricane season. Never a bad thing whatsoever. Obviously, some people have seen some very drastic impacts from the storms that didn't impact the Northern Caribbean, the remnants of Barry, which was very early in the tropical season. That did result in a lot of moisture, and that resulted in the flooding of the hill country in Texas. And then we saw some flooding records in upstate North Carolina and up into Virginia as a result of Tropical Storm Chantal. You may remember that. That was around the 4th of July. But other than that, tropical impacts have been very slim to none, especially when you reference it compared to last year. So I did mention that, yes, hurricane season will end at the end of the month of November. The peak of it happens around September 10th. That's when we see the most frequency of not only hurricanes, but also tropical storms, so just those general name storms. And then after the peak, of course, you have to go down. And we see kind of maybe a bit of a secondary peak somewhere there in the middle portion of the month of October. But then after that secondary peak, we go way on down. And right now, we're somewhere past this November 10th box. And as we go all the way close to December 1st, it will officially be the end of the Atlantic hurricane season. So it's not very likely that we have anything in the way of a named storm, especially of hurricane status popping up. The waters in the Atlantic are beginning their cool down as we're heading deep into the fall season and approaching the start of winter, which is actually going to be in a little bit over a month. You wouldn't know it with some of the record lows that we just broke and having our first freeze, first time dipping in the 20s. Even feels like numbers in the upper teens as we walked out on Tuesday morning. So of course, they gave you a bit of an early preview of what's to come, but right now it looks like it's going to continue to be a very dry stretch of weather, a very warm stretch of weather at that, something we typically don't see during the later portion of the month of November, but it will be a golden opportunity for getting in any outdoor plans that you do have. So it's a bit of a lull in the weather action, but we always can find something to talk about. So filled up about 30 minutes right there, and I really do appreciate you for tuning in. I hope you have a safe and a fun weekend here in Central Georgia. Remember, Stuff the Truck next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Make sure to come out and say hey to us and help support such a great cause. We always like to go above and beyond the number that we set last year, so help us break a new record and welcome in the holiday season with Thanksgiving a week later and then getting into the best time of the year with Christmas. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at 11 a.m. on Monday.